I'm offline. Hello, am I audible? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jaya Kalyanaraman from Bangalore, India. On today's solo poetry presentation. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Prasna Kumar, creator of this forum, the Fertile Brains, for this initiative and for giving me this opportunity. When I look back on my life, I realize that I was always writing from a very young age, having been called upon to give welcome speeches or propose the vote of thanks, scripts for variety programs, or converting a story into a play for a class act. My ability to write poetry gained currency when in 1983, I joined All India Radio Bangalore to devise and present programs for children on a part-time basis. I composed a one-verse signature song that I sang at the start of each show during the 6 years that I did radio. And sometimes I added a second verse pertaining specifically to the theme of that program. Let me give you an example. My signature tune was, "Come around me, little girls and boys, let us fill our time with fun and joy. Once again, we're here to laugh and sing. Every one of us must do our thing." Then for the Wildlife Week, I added this verse. "It's the International Wildlife Week for animals and plants and birds and bees. Most of them are dying every day, and to save them, we must find a way." So to answer why I write poetry, well, many of my thoughts find expression in the spoken word, but I'd say that at 72 years, I'm still looking for a mentor who will give me a feedback and tell me I'm good to go. What subjects would I write about? My word imagery comes from lived experiences in terms of what I see, what emotions I feel, anything that impacts me that might dull in my memory with time. Finds posterity in my writing in both verse and prose. There are times when a picture or a word does work as a poetry prompt. For this evening, I have permission to not limit myself to poetry, but also cover a few of my lived experiences. My first experience, halfway through grade 11 in 1968, I represented my school at an All India competition in Delhi. A piece that I recited at the elocution competition has, for some reason, remained in my memory over these past 54 years. It speaks to me of love, compassion, resilience, and how to remain steadfast in the face of any adversity. The excerpt is from a speech that Swami Vivekananda made at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago in 1893. To me, this piece is neither about religion nor politics. So here goes. They talk of patriotism. I believe in patriotism, and I also have my own ideals of patriotism. 3 things are necessary for great achievements. First, feel from the heart. What is in the intellect or reason? It goes a few steps and there it stops. But through the heart comes inspiration. Love opens the most impossible gates. Love is the gate to all the secrets of the universe. Feel, therefore, my would-be reformers, my would-be patriots, do you feel? Do you feel that millions and millions of the descendants of gods and of sages have become next-door neighbors to brutes? Do you feel that millions are starving today and that millions have been starving for ages? Do you feel that ignorance has come over the land as a dark cloud? Does it make you restless? Does it make you sleepless? Has it gone into your blood, coursing through your veins, becoming consonant with your heartbeats? Has it made you almost mad? Are you seized with that one idea of the misery of ruin? And have you forgotten all about your name, your fame, your wives, your children, your property, even your own bodies? Have you done that? That, according to Swami Vivekananda, is the very first step to become a patriot, the very first step. You may feel them, but instead of spending your energies in frothy talk, have you found any way out, any practical solution, some help instead of condemnation, some sweet words to soothe their miseries, to bring them out of this living death? Yet, that is not all. Have you got the will to surmount mountain-high obstructions? If the whole world stands against you, sword in hand, would you still dare to do what you think is right? If your wives and children are against you, if all your money goes, your name dies, your wealth vanishes, would you still stick to it? Would you still pursue it and go on steadily towards your own goal? As the great King Bharatahari says, let the sages blame or let them praise. Let the goddess of fortune come, or let her go wherever she likes. Let death come today, or let it come in 100 years. He indeed is a steady man who does not move 1 inch from the way of truth. Have you got that steadfastness? If you have these 3 things, each one of you will perform miracles. You need not write in newspapers. You need not go about lecturing. Your very face will shine. And if you live in a cave, your thoughts will permeate even through the rock walls, will go vibrating all over the world for hundreds of years. Maybe until they fasten onto some brain and work out there. Such is the power of thought, of sincerity, and of purity of purpose. My second capsule was also at this event in 1968. I participated in the fancy dress competition where I went dressed as a book of Shakespeare's plays. And this is how I introduced myself. I'm the novel edition of Shakespeare's plays. I'm the result of what Shakespeare might have called A Midsummer Night's Dream. I ought to have been released to the public earlier, but you know what the publishers are like, always making much ado about nothing. The fact is that publishers had to attend the wedding of Romeo and Juliet that was held on 12th night. The wedding was attended by celebrities like Julius Caesar, Antony and Cleopatra, King Lear, Henry V, Hamlet, Macbeth, and the 2 gentlemen from Verona. The wedding ring was sponsored by the Merchant of Venice, and the wedding ring was prepared by the Merry Wives of Windsor. Soon after the wedding, the bride and the groom had a quarrel which resulted in a tempest. While Juliet gave it right back to Romeo, measure for measure, Romeo just shrugged his shoulders and said, "As you like it, Juliet." Even so, his main occupation has been the taming of the shrew. What could have been a comedy of errors resulted in love's labors lost. Let me not make you weary any more with this winter's tale, but retire quietly, hoping that all's well, that ends well. My third capsule, life in the defense services can really give one opportunities to discover oneself. I was barely married for 2 years when I was called upon to organize a fashion show. At that point in time, I didn't know how to say no, so I accepted the challenge. There were whispers that got back to me about how could this plump woman handle this? The poem I'm going to recite spans over 40 years, a narrative that talks about my journey trying to lose weight. So here goes. Love is just a 4-letter word. No, wait. Love is more than just a 4-letter word. Sitting near the exit door, diaper bag upon the floor, sleeping the sleep of a brand new mom, up I jumped when my name was called. Meeting summoned by my husband's boss to plan an event, don't remember the course, was thrust on me. Nowhere to go, I was told to organize a fashion show. Fashion, I loved. But to show once more a body that I could no longer adore was a challenge. But I took it on. That's when the body shaming began. Was she really a flight stewardess? I heard it said. Look at her now. What a mess. My firstborn was just a few months old, and my mama Ponch was out on show. Jane Fonda and jogging became my goal. Low fat, no carbs, fad diets galore. No doubt about it, I did get fit. But the scales, they didn't move a bit. From machines that work on you while you rest to health spas, Ayurveda, I did my best, gymming and spinning, but no sign of thinning. I put my dear husband's wallet to the test. Perhaps a thyroid problem, I was told. Everything was put on hold. Batteries of tests I daily endured, at the end of which I was unceremoniously told, you won't lose weight. Not in this lifetime. You won't lose weight. But the adrenaline rush and the endorphins high, the cardio machines had become part of my life. I continued gymming for the love of that space. Fat I was, but couldn't accept it with grace. Walking down the street one day, a man stopped me on my way, pointing to a diet ad. Pointing to a diet ad? His insult was as clear as day. How dare you? I growled at him. How dare you? And turning quickly, I walked away. The sales girls at the cosmetic stores begin their sales pitch as you enter the door. Foreign creams and lotions they show, promising miracles for your skin. And so, before you know it, you are sucked in. The search is endless. It never stops till your friends tell you of your sparkling eyes and radiant smile, of your never die spirit and your busy hands and of the love you bring to all you care. Love is more than just a four-letter word. It is the thing that, through thick and thin, makes you perfect in your own eyes and in your own skin. Makes you brave enough to growl, "How dare you? How dare you?" Love is what you give yourself once you accept all change and all that is. The fourth is an illustration of the variety of activities I've indulged in. With no prior experience whatsoever, I had the gumption to take this on. Hi, hi, what a feeling to fly over mountains and forests and seas, and to go anywhere that I please. That was the soundtrack as Priya, the protagonist, took off on her maiden solo flight. Maiden Flight was a two-part docudrama that I produced and directed in 1994. My acquired skills from varied work experiences, a lot of luck and serendipitous moments, coupled with being at the right place at the right time, helped Maiden Flight evolve organically. I did have my moments of frustration and anxiety, sweat and tears. But today, I'm going to reflect only on the positives. In 1993, the Indian Air Force advertised calling for applications from women to be recruited as pilots. I wished I could have turned back time and have had that career option. A story began spinning in my head, and I began daydreaming about making a movie. When in January 1994, the new recruits began their training, the Air Force and the media were full of this historical moment. It's then that I began putting my story to paper, and armed with my manuscript, I walked into Air Headquarters in Delhi. I had my first serendipitous moment when I was directed to meet a senior officer. He turned out to be someone we knew from way back when. He was supportive and encouraging. He introduced me to the Air Force PRO, who got down to the business of reading my story. I was nervous. He finally looked up and said, "Nice, not bad," and added that it lacked in facts. I was beginning to feel disheartened when he asked if I would consider going to the training school to get a feel of the vibe there. I almost jumped for joy at his suggestion, and a couple of weeks later, I was at the Air Force Academy in Dundigal near Hyderabad. I spent 3 days living the lives and routines of the cadets and also got some personal stories. I documented the facts and wove it smoothly into my story. I submitted the docudrama Maiden Flight version 2 to the Air Force. The Air Force took it to the next level. They decided that my story would be the film on the national network for the Air Force Day that year. I hadn't thought so big. I was up for the challenge. The letter from the Air Force gave me direction, and my focus became clearer. But neither the Air Force nor Doordarshan were going to fund me. My film was slotted in the sponsored programs category, which meant that I would have to sell commercial time to sponsors and raise money to cover production costs and telecast fees. After much discussion with the powers that be at Mandi House, I was finally awarded a time slot, 9 p.m. time slot, prime time for telecast on 2 consecutive Sundays in October. My little venture needed a business identity of its own, so we christened it Viewfinder. Viewfinder also needed a business current account in a bank. My second serendipitous moment was lurking round the corner. One day, while topping up my car, the owner of the petrol station came up for a chat. He was curious about my fiberglass-bodied, Bangalore-manufactured car, Dolphin. He was quite a friendly gentleman. In the middle of our conversation, I slipped in that I needed an introduction at the bank next door to open a current account. We walked across to the bank, and within the hour, Viewfinder had its own business current account. I needed just 4 sponsors. I wrote to 60 companies. This was the most trying and testing part of my project. The wait seemed endless. But once the first sponsor came in, the rest followed in quick succession. A bonus 5th sponsor came in after the telecast of the first episode. I was simultaneously in negotiations with 2 production houses to handle the technical aspect of filming and editing. They gave me quotations for far beyond the monies I could raise from sponsorship. Besides, they were all set to usurp all my credits, reducing me to a middleman, a coordinator of sorts. A new neighbor moved into the apartment next to ours and almost immediately had a family medical emergency. They, the neighbors, needed the use of my landline telephone. When I left my front door ajar for them to walk in, as often as they needed to use my phone, I never guessed that I was also inviting my third serendipitous moment in. When things got to normal, the neighbor came to thank me. He was curious about my work. I told him about my project and how I was stuck for a technical team. He went through his address book, dialed up a number, and introduced me to his classmate from school who now owned a production house, and he set up a meeting between us. When the owner and I met, I learned for the first time the kind of equipment and manpower that I needed. We went through my entire storyboard, and he kept making notes. After going through my filming and post-production requirements, he came up with a quotation that was quarter of the rates that had been earlier quoted. I was good to go. I rushed hurriedly to the academy to tie up all the loose ends and finalize the locations for filming, make arrangements for accommodation for my crew, and identify a local supplier of filming equipment like lights and tracks and generator. I had a day to spare, so I extended my trip to Bangalore to see my ailing mother. She had been bedridden for 2 years after a stroke. I spent a few hours with her. I told her I was making a movie, and she seemed to say that she knew. Back in Delhi, I finalized my filming schedule, and all through August we filmed at the Air Force Service Selection Board in Dehradun followed by a 7-day filming at the Air Force Academy in Dindigul, the Institute of Aviation Medicine in Delhi, at the Air Force Station Palam and Air Force Station Hindon, the school scenes at the Air Force Golden Jubilee Institute, and the family scenes at the home of my new neighbor. In the midst of the location filming, I received the devastating news of my mother's passing. I could neither cancel or postpone, as I had already spent a huge chunk of my sponsors' monies. The show had to go on, and it did. My young son, just out of school, was on a shoot with me and took on more responsibilities that belied his age. In September, at an easy and comfortable space, we went into post-production. It was a very exciting project to edit, mix, add music and the voiceover, and to watch Maiden Flight come together. After the telecast of both episodes of Maiden Flight that was sponsored by Dunlop, Indian Oil Corporation, Mesco Airlines, Castrol, and Vespa in October 1994, NDTV featured me on their Good Morning India show, and I became a stringer with Doordarshan to produce news capsules on subjects of social relevance. On to my last capsule, I want to end by singing a song that was a lullaby to my daughter when she was a child, and she still asks me to sing it after all these years when we meet. Moon river, wider than a mile, I'm crossing you in style someday. You dream maker, you heart breaker, wherever you're going, I'm going your way. Two drifters off to see the world. There's such a lot of world to see, where after the same rainbows end, my huckleberry friend. Moon, river, and me. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and good night.